Welcome boys and girls, Christine here with a discussion about Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires and the upcoming High Elf rework, what Creative Assembly has shared with us and the kind of things that they should be looking to do for the High Elves. I've talked about this before, but since they've delayed the DLC again, I think it is the last opportunity we have right now to highlight some of the issues High Elves have and the kind of things that Creative Assembly should be looking to improve for them. But first off, let's look at what Creative Assembly has stated about the High Elves in 7.0. The sweeping new update for the High Elves centers around the new Patrons of the Realm feature, which lets faction vie for influence across 11 seats of power to unlock rewards and potential confederations. Alongside this, Tyrion gains the new Champion of Ulthuan feature, allowing him to enact new themed actions on any visible region or force, while Teclis gains the Secrets of the White Tower feature, allowing him to supercharge the spellcasting potential of wizards throughout his armies. That is all that they have revealed, beyond of course the new units that are going to be coming alongside Tides of Torment and of course Aislinn. We don't know where Aislinn is going to be, though if I were to hazard a guess, it might very well be Cathay. Hopefully it will not be Lustria, unless they significantly update Lustria as a campaign area. That is certainly a problem, the fact that so much of the world is jungle and the jungle just isn't really a great area to deal with on the campaign map. Of course, the trailer also shows a lot of ships. Will we have naval battles? I don't think so, but we will find out how exactly or what exactly the role of ships will be in this DLC, because you look at Norska, you look at High Elves, they're both naval-focused factions. The Kala, sure, Slaanesh not so much, until you realize the Kala was a former High Elf herself. That's the reason for the name, though Sail and the Kala don't really have as much to do with the sea as Aislinn does. With regards to Teclis and Tyrion, I don't know how to feel about what they said about Tyrion. Hopefully it's a good mechanic and not a debuff situation like a Stankia, because, let me be as frank as possible, that entire mechanic was rather pointless. As for Teclis, yes, him having magic power in the same way as Gelt is very warranted, and he should be more powerful than Gelt because he is more powerful than Gelt, substantially more powerful than Gelt. But the problem with Teclis' campaign is not him as a legendary lord from a caster perspective, it's really the focus of this campaign. It's the jungle focus of the campaign that you do have over here. It's the climate situation. It's also the inherent issue of Ulthuan. Now, Teclis can avoid dealing with Ulthuan, but who exactly in their right mind wants to play a campaign where you deal with Lustria? Especially when a decent chunk of Lustria may not necessarily have the best climate, like mountains or desert and so on and so forth. Also, Teclis' campaign, if we look over here, all of Nehekara is uninhabitable. The mountains are unpleasant. It's not a great campaign dynamic, and it doesn't fit Teclis whatsoever in the lore, because Teclis should really be kind of like Axiatl or Arbol, who have those kind of campaign objectives where they teleport around the map to deal with various problems. Though the difference between Teclis, Axial, and Arbol is that whereas Axial and Arbol are showing up to blow everything up, Teclis should be more about building stuff, helping allies, working in diplomacy, not be confined to the hellscape that is Lustria. So that is the issue for Teclis' campaign. Also, yes, dealing with Kairos, the kind of situation that he has here. He basically needs a different starting position and an entirely different campaign dynamic. And yeah, again, having one of the big siege factions to deal with as a neighbor is rather frustrating, to put them mildly, especially when that siege faction is in the Chaos Wastes. So that is a factor, but there is more. With respect to the High Elves themselves as a race, one of the key issues that we can think of is research trees. So you do have some powerful research technology, especially with regards to cultural advancements, but you have one of those research trees where you need to get buildings to unlock stuff, but by the time you get those buildings up, we're talking tier 4 buildings over here, you're so powerful that it's just like, oh, congrats, you won the campaign, here's more power, essentially. That is one of the core problems of the High Elves, because their default roster of archers and spearmen, or archers with light armor and spearmen, is really good at dealing with most issues in the game in a campaign overall. Sure, there are some higher end armies which would require more specialized units, or you could bring free armies of spearmen and archers and probably win, even an auto-resolve. What's not especially fun about High Elves is the fact that you have nobles at tier 2 and only one you can get at tier 2. The others require tier 4, a mage at tier 3, the rest require tier 4, and handmaids at tier 4. There's a lot of power to be gained for High Elves. Like, handmaidens are ridiculously good heroes, especially with the positive traits that they can get. But even without that, they were talking diplomatic relations with everyone, influence, control, which is crucial for the High Elven economy. Basically, everything in terms of research, in terms of heroes, hero traits, hero abilities, unit recruitment tiers, campaign pacing needs to be rebalanced for the High Elves. If they don't do that and just add, oh, let's add the tier 3 building tier, or let's add the sea elementals down the mage, the tower of mages, and you get the big one at tier 5, the smaller one at tier 4, and Murmurum also at tier 5. That's not exactly gonna be a great dynamic Crave assembly. I'm gonna call it right now. Confederations that they've said they're gonna add in the post, well, I do wonder how those are going to work out, because High Elves have the inherent issue of Wolf 1. See, Wolf 1 is so valuable and so good that ignoring it just feels you're not really playing a High Elven campaign. And it's not just even the landmarks. Those generally don't matter, because by the time you get them, the tier requirements of those landmarks are so ridiculous with some of these things that by the time you unlock them, your campaign is long since over. I've talked about the issue of campaign pacing, the endgame problem. Where it hurts Wolf 1 is that you have a lot of these provinces. Oh, you have a tier 5 landmark in a province with just 2 settlements. You can understand how that's a really painful experience to deal with. But really, where it's bad is that you want to engage with Wolf 1 because you have legendary lords to confederate. So you've got Tyrion, you've got Telariel, and you have Elfarion, assuming you're not playing him. It's fun to play with legendary lords, it's fun to confederate them, and it's fun to get that power, but yeah, Wolf 1 is not exactly the most dynamic gameplay experience that one can deal with. Compare that to the dwarves or chaos dwarves, that is a very different situation. And funnily enough, playing of High Elven lords are split across locations, but it's like not getting Zarnagrund as chaos dwarves. You're not playing a Chaos Dwarf campaign then. So that is a problem, one inherent issue that I think they need to resolve. And I hope they avoid the problem that Gelt has, which is like, yeah, Gelt is really powerful. And then his campaign is dull because it's one-dimensional and you decimate everything in your path. Core issues tied to a campaign. I'd rather have another Malachi situation, but we'll find out how CA plays that. Hopefully they do it well. Another thing we gotta talk about is the damn influence system. Basically, the way lords and heroes work is that you spend influence to recruit ones with good traits. Otherwise, you get negative traits. There are, of course, certain traits that don't matter if you do get them. Ridiculed, especially for archmages, like, who cares? So basically, this is as close to a neutral trait as you're going to get, but otherwise you're going to get some with really, really good traits. And the most ridiculous of these traits is for archmages, but not just for archmages. There's certainly things like that are insanely crazy. I'm just trying to find one that has the one I'm looking for, which is administrator. This one is ridiculous. One, it stacks, and even on its own, it's really powerful. So you get that dynamic. It's like, High Elves can be really one-dimensional early on in their campaigns, then they're ridiculous. Dwarves are also ridiculous long-term in the campaign, but it's not like dwarves have a free ride. I mean, even though dwarves have a good infantry line, they have to fight. They have powerful foes that contest them. They're not sitting in the middle of an island. And dwarves have that entire dynamic where they're pushed out to go do stuff. High elves are just like more defense-oriented at the moment than dwarves are, which is, yeah, ridiculous. Of course, some people will always argue against that, you know, dwarves should play tall. I call bullshit. And I've always called bullshit on that, because the idea that dwarves just sit in their holds and do nothing is not consistent whatsoever in the lore. But don't tell Reddit that they're ever wrong on something. It's not how it works. The problem, though, is with these kind of traits, going back to that, is you have some ridiculous bullshit on top of that. You have handmaidens that give you 40 growth in the province they are as a trait. You have nobles that give you campaign movement range. It ends up being pretty damn ridiculous. I mean, consider this one that you start with as Teclis. He has 2 growth in every province and 5 growth in the local province. And bear in mind, Fruitful is not the significant one. Some of the stuff you can gain on Lords and Heroes are just ridiculous. Like, let's just take a look at the list that we have here. So we get, for 60 influence, we get Physical Resistance, Perfect Vigor, or we get Ward Save. Then we get Organized, minus 10% upkeep, or Respectful, which is whatever as a trait, right? But if I look at the load save character system, and yes, I have saved plenty of them, we look at Adept. This is where we start getting into the bullshit level. 250 experience per turn, 20% ammunition, and this is not some trait you gain by defeating a Legendary Lord and loading it up. That's the point of the load save character systems, like if you want these super powerful characters. But this is just a generic trait, and yes, I think that the existing character sheets should be wiped out, or you shouldn't be able to load them, and they need a complete rebalancing of existing High Elven traits and a complete removal of this entire system influence. Maybe you can spend influence on a Lord or Hero to make them better later on in a campaign, but you should just be able to recruit ones with some trait slots, and then you get to decide as they level up, or if you want to spend some resource on it, as opposed to you just loading them up. But yeah, the load save character system, I don't think they should remove it, but I do absolutely think they need to rebalance it. Different discussion. Rebalance economy, rebalance research rate, rebalance lords, mechanics, and here's the thing. They've talked about Tyrion and Teclis, right? Let me ask you the obvious question, Creative Assembly. What about everyone else? Because if you're just redoing Tyrion and Teclis, that's great. Can we talk about Alariel's buggy mechanic? Faction mechanic? Could we talk about Elfarion needing to fight every single manual battle just so he can capture a lord so his mechanic work, which makes him damned unplayable in any multiplayer campaign because no one's gonna let you do that? I can go on, but this is a serious problem. Like, it's like, oh, we'll just fix 2 of them. Don't do that again. You did that for Tides of Torment, Thrones of Decay, sorry. That was great for Karl Franz and Gelt. Not so great you have basically ignored Volkmar and Marcus Wolfhard for over a year. And that, by the way, cuts to the key point I wish to make about Tides of Torment. It needs to be better than Thrones of Decay. It can't just be like, oh, we did this before we reworked 2 lords. Okay, you reworked 2 lords for the sake of Omens of Destruction, which is Scrag and Greasus. That was great, but they also added improvements for Skarsnik and Warzag in their campaigns as well. That was fine. Now, I'm fine if they don't necessarily rework Elfarion or Alariel or Alifanara, but I would like some basic damn fixes, CA. I don't think it is acceptable for a company that has a revenue stream of $200 million a year, according to your own statistics, to leave stuff like this 4 years in your game without doing a damn thing. This is why people are pissed off at Creative Assembly. It's not because people are unreasonable. It's because we know how cheap they are. We know. We understand exactly. If you do the financial math of all of this, you know how much CA is doing it. And before you say, oh, it's complicated code, etc. No, it is not. complicated because modders can fix these issues. Modders have fixed these issues. You're not gonna sell me on the idea that you had to leave Teclis for 3 years in this god-awful starting position with no mechanics whatsoever because you couldn't do it. People are no longer interested in Creative Assembly's excuses. They fucked up. Now we get to call them out. And look, we call them out because we want them to do better. Like, people have asked me, oh, why are you just so critical of CA? Because I see where this goes. And some people may not appreciate that completely, but I know where this goes. I would like them to do well. Other content creators would like them to do well. Do you think any content creator wants a game they cover to do poorly? That's not how it works. Sure, some people want to crash and burn everything, but most people who are engaged in a video game do want it to do well. That's my perspective. That's all I had to say. Lots of issues. And look, I'm just going to end it with this. It should be that the people, NCA, the developers of the company, should be aware of these issues in themselves. If we continuously have this situation where the community has to call out issues for Creative Assembly to even be aware that there are issues, what are you doing? Because clearly, CA is not doing their jobs. Developers are not doing their jobs. You know, they're going their 9-to-5 schedule, moving on, and that's it, right? Some do more, and I know they do more, but, you know, I'm reminded of what Mandalore Gaming said in his review of Warhammer 2, how some of the awesome single entity animations of Warhammer 2 were done by developers in their own time. Where is that Creative Assembly? Because apparently it doesn't exist anymore. Kostin signing out.